Hello from Plant Reviews. Today I will talk about Sprekelia formosissima, the plant known also as Aztec Lily or Jacobean Lily. The name Aztec Lily comes from the fact that this plant comes from Mexico and Guatemala, therefore from Central America, where in the wild lives in rocky hills, so obviously very sunny and very well drained. The other name, Jacobean Lily, is talked because it was very popular flower historically during the King James era, but there is also another theory stating that this might be due to the fact that this plant sometimes blooms in July when St. James Day is. So there's two different theories. About the scientific name, the Sprekelia comes from the name of a botanist from Hamburg, Sprekel. It was a horticulturist lawyer, and so it was dedicated to him, while the second part of the scientific name, the formosissima, is an adjective in Latin and means very beautiful, perfectly formed, and as you can see, the flower shape and the color is really stunning. About the Aztec Lily, even if it's called Lily, is actually in the family of the Amaryllidaceae, so is a relative of Amaryllis, and in particular of Hippeastrum. So the plants that are pretty popular in Christmas time to grow as, and actually they are called Amaryllis, even if they are a Hippeastrum. This plant can also hybridize with the Hippeastrum. I'm giving some hybrids that might be have bigger flowers as well, but I honestly prefer the beauty and the very elegant shape of the species, this species, the Sprekelia formosissima. The Sprekelia is a plant that is a bulbous perennial plant. Bulbs can be bought in usually in spring, late winter, spring. Indeed, this is a plant that is frost tender, so it needs to be planted in pots or planted out after the frost, the last date of frost, as pest. It's not a very common bulb to find in garden center, honestly. I've never found the bulbs in any garden center. However, it is not difficult to find it online, and also in some plant fairs. I bought my first 3 bulbs of Sprekelia formosissima at the flower show in Kent 3 years ago, and they bloomed beautifully and developed very nice plants. Unfortunately, 2 of them were attacked by some grubs, so when I lifted from the ground to be stored frost-free in the winter, I found that 2 were completely eaten by these kind of maggots. I have no idea what kind of insects they were. However, I was able to save 1. Luckily enough, all the 3 bulbs flower bloomed, and actually 1 plant developed 2 flowers. 1 just straight after I planted the bulb, and 1 in so it was late spring, and another 1 in late summer. And luckily I was able to pollinate the plants, and I planted some seeds that I still have. About the cultivation, this is a plant that, as I said, needs to be planted out in spring, and it will grow in spring and autumn. And then again lifted. It can be lifted from the ground if you're planting in the ground, but if you have it in a pot, can be either left in the pot or lifted the bulbs and then put in a new pot the year after. However, it's more recommendable to leave the plants in the same pot, because when they are disturbed, they sometimes might not flower the year after being lifted. About the storage of the bulbs, they can be put in a room that is not very hot. However, in some areas of the UK, like in the southwest, it has been found that these bulbs can actually overwinter outside, and so in a very mild climate, I've read that they can be kept all year round in the ground. However, here in Kent I decided to lift the bulbs, even if the climate is pretty mild. But I was lucky because the first year I got the bulbs was the winter where we had the beast from the east, so temperatures with -7, -8 in the garden in a pot, for sure the bulbs would have died, at least if not for sure, very probably. About the cultivation, this plant is really needs full sun, so if you have a pot, if you put it in the ground, really the biggest important requirement is to plant it in full sun. About the soil, like many bulbs, needs a well-drained soil. Keep it moist but absolutely not waterlogged during the growing season from spring to autumn, and obviously try to keep it weed free because the plant is not really tall. The leaves are usually develop about 30 centimeters, but the flowers are usually held in stems that are about between 10 and 20 centimeters. As you can see, I put the plot diagonally, but you can see actually from the camouflaged with some grass, but you can see here the edge of the pot is actually pretty close to the flower. Sometimes actually the bottom part of the flowers touches the ground, so for the video I decided to put the pot diagonally so you can actually appreciate the flower in all its beauty. About diseases, I already spoke about the grubs that sometimes can eat the bulbs. I found out that it's also prone to mealy bugs, especially in the crevices between the leaves. I cultivate this plant for about 3 years now, and I never found any mealy bugs. So might be that in UK it's not a high risk, or at least in the area where I live. About the fertilization, fertilize 1 or 2 times for growing season. However, it's a very adaptable plant. As long as it has full sun and well-drained soil, it will grow very easily. Obviously, keeping up with fertilizing will make higher likely the chance of getting blooms every year, because it's a bit erratic in blooming. About the flowers, as you can see, well, I was to speak first about the leaves. The leaves are born either at the same time or just after the flower, or sometimes before the flower. This is actually a leaf of the Jacobean Lily. This one sprouting. This is just grass I put in the pot just to avoid the blackbirds digging and damaging the bulbs. But yeah, this is the leaf, the one that I'm touching with my index fingers. It's just developing, while the flower, as you can see, is in full bloom. When the leaves are fully formed, they're about 20 to 30 centimeters tall, very bright green. Yeah, very nice leaves. I actually like very much the color. About the flowers, as I said, it's not a bulb that flowers every year. Sometimes out of say 5-6 bulbs, only a couple can bloom. I was very lucky the first year indeed. Last year I bought another couple of bulbs of Sprekelia formosissima and had only 1 flower. I'm not too sure if from the 1 bulb left the year before, or from one of the 2 bulbs I bought. So this year I bought 3 bulbs, and well, I planted them all together in this pot, and I have 1 beautiful bloom, and I'm not sure really which bulb decided to bloom this year. However, I'm glad that at least 1 did. I hope that to update you with another video later on if some more flowers will bloom. About the flower, as you can see, it grows on a quite short to medium flower stalk, I would say, cylindrical. The flower is very peculiar for an Amaryllis. The 6 tepals, first of all, are of an absolutely gorgeous scarlet bright red. The upper petal is very upright, as you can see. The 2 petals are held horizontally, and they curl downwards or sometimes backwards, while the two sepals and one tepal at the bottom, they make a kind of cylindrical structure, as you can see, at the center of the bulb, and then diverge at the end, almost giving the appearance of like the fringed lip of some orchids. Indeed, another name of this plant is also Orchid Lily. As you can see, the red of the flower is absolutely bright. It is among like crimson to scarlet, and also is almost glow. I'm not too sure if you can actually see on the camera the shimmering effect that the petals of the petals glowing in the sun. This plant unfortunately is not fragrant, but not fragrant at all. I can't detect not even the slightest or faintest fragrance. However, the color is absolutely beautiful and make this one of my favorite all-time plant, among all the plants. The anthers are bright yellow and contrast very beautifully with the flower. There are some other colors available, but they are not very common. Sometimes they can be... there are some pink varieties, some white varieties, and also a variety that is red edged with white, and another variety that is that has a paler stripe in the middle of the petals and sepals. However, I would say that the bright scarlet is anyway my favorite, even if I don't own any of the other variety. The plant is... there's different populations of the plant. I read on the Pacific Bulb Society websites. Some of them are not self-fertile, but some others are. So basically, to pollinate the flower of the Amaryllis, you need just to take one of the anthers here. They are quite easy to get out of the stem, and then you can see here the stigma at the center. I hope that you are able to, you see the three-lobed grayish area. 1 second, I try to focus it. Okay, the camera really... okay, you can see among the anthers like a grayish triangular projections. That's the stigma, the female part. The anthers, the yellow one containing the pollen, are the male part. So what I would do, I would gently rub the pollen on the stigma, like this. So I'll take another, and then just continue rubbing here. Perfect. Okay, so hopefully now we have a pollinated Sprekelia formosissima. I hope to get some seeds. I was very lucky the first year, as I said, because all my 3 bulbs bloomed at the same time, so I was able to cross-pollinate them, and I had 3 seed pods, so I had quite a few seeds. And this one I will keep you updated about this flower. The flowers, another feature of the flower is that they are very big. They can be up to 15 centimeters tall. As you can see, they are about the size of my hand, and I think the flower shape and the color makes really this a standout bulb to keep in a pot or in the garden. The only drawback is that the flowers last very few days, so usually by a week they're already gone, but I would say that in these few days they make such a show that it's still worth to have the plant in your garden. The blooming, as I said, can be very erratic, and the plants can not bloom even for 1 year or sometimes even 2 years. Therefore, when you buy Sprekelias, I would recommend to buy at least 5 or 6, so you will be pretty sure to have at least a couple of blooms. There is another species called Sprekelia howardi, which has much narrower petals and sepals. However, it's very rare. Each bulb can produce more than if you're lucky, can produce more than one flower stalk per year. Sometimes they bloom in early spring, and then, well, today is the 7th of May, so it's mid-spring, and again in summer. However, there's as far as I know, there's never two blooms from the same bulb at the same time, so they are sequential bloomers. The seeds, once you plant the seeds, the plant can start blooming even after 7 years, so you have to be very patient. About the propagation, this can propagate both through side bulbs, so from one bulb slowly develops more bulbs, and that's the best way really to increase your bulb stock and your flower production, obviously, because the bulbs are already quite developed. Otherwise, you can propagate the plant through seeds. That takes quite a while. I've read that the seeds usually are not viable for long. I remember that I collected the seeds in summer. The seed pods need to mature on the plant itself, and you will end up with like a triangular capsule with very black seeds. When you collect the seeds, careful there's no wind around, because they are very large and narrow, so they can easily be blown in the wind, and this is the way basically by which the plant spreads in nature. And so leave the capsule on the plant as much as possible, and then just when you see the capsule is almost splitting, collect it and collect the seeds. I've read that the seeds are not very viable. They last very few weeks, so I decided to plant them in autumn, putting it home. But when I did them in a pot, I think I forgot to keep them moist, evidently, or maybe indoors, didn't have enough sun, and all of them died, unfortunately. Luckily, I kept a few spare that I decided to plant in the following late spring, around May, and so even if it was almost 1 year that have passed, the seeds were very viable indeed. I ended up with more than 20 bulbs, so I'm very happy with the result. About the cultivation tips, again, about the seeds, plant them very superficially in the pot is very important. So just a little bit of compost on the top of the seeds, because they won't be able to reach the surface if you plant them too deep. I would say leave them about 5 millimeters of compost above the seeds. Again, this plant needs well-drained soil and full sun, that's the most important, and protection from frost. Take the pot in winter if you grow them in a pot, or if the bulbs in autumn if you grow them outdoors in a frost-free place. Again, better not disturb the plant if they are in a pot, because in this way it's much more likely that they bloom the year after. And about the pests, again, careful of mealy bugs, about what I've read, and also hopefully trying to avoid the grubs and worms eating the bulbs. How can you do it? Well, really, what I would do, even if it's not recommended to leave them from a pot, because it's more likely that they will not flower, still I would recommend in autumn to leave them from the pot, because if you have grubs you won't be able to know if they are in the pot, and if you leave them uncontrolled they might start eating all the other bulbs that are not infested by grubs. And now I will try to show you my seeds from last year. And they are here, Sprekelia formosissima seedlings. These are plants that I sown 2 years ago. Yeah, and you can see just the dry grass, because I put some grass to avoid the blackbirds. Yeah, to trick the blackbirds not to bother my pots, and in these pots so far has worked, and you can see they are just sprouting the leaves now. They're strap-like leaves. hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it is a bit very long, but probably because I like the plant so much I wanted really to give you as many information as possible, and I will see you next time. Bye.